Hey, welcome back to Visibility Vixen. You're listening to episode 32.
Is how hard people make it to see what they sell. Like, I will go to 100 websites in a day and not have any fucking clue what you sell.
Welcome to the Visibility Vixen podcast, where we create space to grow our brand with intention and clarity, one episode at a time. Join us as we explore the many aspects of entrepreneurship, start loving the journey instead of the destination, and begin building a legacy that lasts. Here's your host, Michelle Lewis.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. This is an amazing day because, as I know Mariah has done to other people, I have cyber stalked her for about a year now, and I'm such a huge fan of her website, herself, and everything that she produces. So Mariah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited too. So guys, if you're not familiar with Mariah Coz, you need to be. And I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio so that you can learn a little bit more about her and how amazing she is. Mariah has actually been building businesses since 2008, and she helps people turn their weird passions and unique skills into leveraged digital products. She runs Femtrepreneur, a 7-figure business where she helps badass young women start their own online course businesses so they can lead autonomous, independent lives. So Mariah, fill in the gaps there a little bit and let us know like a little bit of your background. You have such a unique background that I absolutely love. So give us little tidbits.
Well, thank you. Okay, so I started my first business when I was in high school. When I was 18, I guess that means I would have graduated, but I didn't go to college right away. So it's kind of floating around. I started my first business as an Etsy store. I was selling like vintage swimsuits and vintage sunglasses that I'd buy at the thrift store and then sell them on Etsy. That was my first business. I then had like 10 other weird businesses. I'm like the weirdo that went from being like I'm completely unemployable. I never had a real person job. Like my personality is not suited to like being employed. So I always knew I had to like figure out how to make money for myself because I was not going to be able to like listen to other people's instructions. So I had an Etsy store. I was freelance writing at one point. I did freelance museum curation. I bought and sold vintage campers. Eventually I started a blog after I had been buying and renovating vintage campers for a while. And I had also actually built a tiny house for a client. After I had done some of those things for a while, I started a blog about it. And then with that blog, I created my first digital product, which is an online course about living in a vintage camper. And that really took off, and it kind of trumped all those other businesses that I had had at the time. It was like, oh, I was doing, I get one speaking gig and I'd get $1,000, but then like that would be it, you know what I mean? Or I get a freelance writing gig and that'd be great, but then it would end. Or I would kind of had these like all these little random things all adding up to barely making a living. But then when I launched the first course about living in a camper, it really took off. And then I was like, okay, I can focus 100% on online courses. I don't have to do all this other stuff to try to like make an income.
Yeah, well, I love that. And when I heard your bio on that, it was right before my parents were buying an RV. And we were getting a Winnebago, but it was like, 2006. So it's got some older stuff in it. And they're like, well, we don't know if we can ever like update this. And I'm like, if Mariah could do it, we could do it. Like, it was such a funny moment. And so now they're slowly but surely incorporating some changes. So I love that about you. So
that's funny. I've seen so many people like we would always do the vintage campers like from the 50s, but then I've seen people make really cute campers out of like 90s and 2000s campers too. So it's totally possible.
Totally. It's like my husband and I's dream to get an RV and like drive around the country when he's not working on a show. Like, I think that would be so much fun. Amazing.
It's a dream for like a couple months, and then you're like, I'm tired and I don't want to have to shower next to another person.
I bet that would be true.
We lived in a van for like 2 years. It was good, but it was stressful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like that would be a little long time. Wow. So our audience are launching lady entrepreneurs. And so they're in that, I don't want to say like cesspool, but like the lost phase of being like, where do I start? Okay, all these people have all these different courses. I need to build my list. Should I start a Facebook group? Should I start a podcast? Should I start an e-course? Like, I don't know. So I would love to give them, just because you have such a wealth of information, what would be like 2 or 3 tangible action steps that they could take in the next like month to actually see some results in their business?
I think the first thing is actually getting more specific probably about what they do. I think a lot of people, when they start out, they like it actually takes a while. Like, you kind of have to have your website and your business for like a couple months to almost like work into like, what am I focusing on? Because when I started Femtrepreneur, it was like, I talked about copywriting, I talked about physical products, I talked about selling on Etsy, I talked about all the stuff that I had done. It was like every type of entrepreneurship. Then I really narrowed it down to just online courses. And I think if anyone who's just starting out is struggling, usually it's because you haven't pinpointed like a 1-sentence way of saying exactly what you do that's like really specific. And the thing is that if you start specific, you can always go broad later. But the best way to stand out when, like you said, oh, there's so many people with courses already, there's so many people with successful blogs, how am I going to stand out? It's by saying like, I'm the girl that's going to teach you how to, do your brand photography in this certain way. Or like, it's because you're like, I'm the person that's going to teach you how to do this really tiny specific thing. So that would be step 1. Step 2 is to start doing webinars. So all those things that you said, like, do I start a Facebook group? What do I do to build my list? Should I have a podcast? Like, all of those things work. And I think that's like the magical like pill that I've found is that like whatever it is that you spend the most time doing is the thing that works for you. It's why people are like, oh my gosh, like Instagram exploded my business. Like, and it's because like, well, you spent hours and hours a day on Instagram and you grew your following there. That's why that worked for you. Or like, whatever you spend your time doing is going to be the thing that works for you. It's not like an innate ability of the actual marketing strategy. It's actually just how much time you put into it. Mm-hmm. For me, the thing that made the most sense was webinars, because I'm an introvert, so I don't necessarily love getting out there. I was very anxious. Like, I didn't feel comfortable on camera. Like, I didn't feel like that would be a natural thing for me to do, but I did logically know that like being on video was an easier way for me to convey messages and like a good way for me to teach, and that it would build trust, and that people would register for your webinar. It builds your list. Like, I knew that it made sense. And if you have limited time, like doing webinars is like the best way to hit on all of those points with like one single activity, rather than being like, I need to blog and I need to podcast and I should have a free ebook and I should have an opt-in and I should do this. It's all wrapped up into like this little webinar thing that you can do once a week.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because I've been doing like all of this other stuff. And now that I finally created the e-courses that I know and I like and I love, now I'm starting to get into the webinars and partnering with other people to do all of that. So it's like, it's a whole different world for me. I wish I would have done it sooner though, like you're saying. I think that would have helped a lot.
I wish so too. I wish I had started doing webinars even sooner than I did. I think I spent months like hemming and hawing and saying like, I'm not ready and like the tech is too hard. Like, I just came up with all these excuses. And then like after the first one, I made $4,000 on my first webinar with like 200 people registered. I didn't even have like any list at the time. So that was all people who had signed up because I had gone on Twitter and like just tweeted all these random people being like, I'm doing a webinar, like you should come sign up or whatever. And I was like, okay, just built my list by 200 people. I just made $4,000. I just got all this confidence, this boost of confidence. answered questions from my ideal audience, and it was awesome. And I was like, wow, I wish I had done that sooner, but you know, it's hard to go back and say that, but it's true.
Well, what I love about what you were saying about finding clarity and starting with your site, starting with your mission statement, all of that is the perfect segue into what I'm dying to talk about, which is website in a box. Because I remember being on your site and I was, you know, and I loved your site, of course, but then I logged into it a different day and everything was different. And you had sent out the email video to show us the before and after. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did she do this? Like, her and Megan better put out some kind of a tutorial because I love this. And then you guys announced website in a box. And I was like one of the first people. I was like a psycho all over it. And I did the same kind of thing. I sent you guys a tutorial because the before and after of my site was so different. And I have so many women every day. Yeah. Every day they're like, hey, you know, how did you do this? Or, oh my gosh, this is so like specific. How did you do this? And I'm like, it's Mariah and Megan. You have to get this product. So not to be super salesy, but I want people to be able to know that they have an actionable way of putting together a site that kind of elevates you above everyone else because it gives your ideal client a path. So can you talk about that a little bit, kind of how you guys designed it?
Absolutely. And this is totally like a joint effort with Megan and I. I came up with a strategy of like you said, a path that people should kind of take when they land on your site. What do you want them to click on? What do you want them to sign up for? What do you want them to see? What do you want them to buy? Like coming up with those strategies. And then Megan is totally the Squarespace wizard. She designed the whole thing. She made all the tutorials and everything. But I think what we saw in the market was that like there's tons of people teaching courses or, you know, showing people even just with free videos like how to design a website or how to make a website. But it's all based on you making decisions. And it's like, oh, you know, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to be branded like? And to us, those are not the things that make you money. Like they're just not. And so for us, it was more about like, what is the strategic way to, you know, outline a website and wireframe a website that is designed to convert. It's designed to get people to click a button and opt in for something. It's designed to get people to click a button and buy something. Like it's not about it being pretty or feeling like this or whatever, or being even something that you decide, which to me as a non-designer, it's very stressful when people are like, what do you want it to look like? Or, you know, what do you want your website to be like? And I'm like, oh, I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to make money. So we really kind of like nailed down what those things are that make people opt in for something or direct people on the right path. It's especially good if you think that you're going to have multiple offerings at some point. Like, let's say you have like a mini course, but you also have a service package, or you have more than one course, or you have like the basic service package and the VIP service package or something like that. It helps people like self-identify as what they should buy or what funnel they should get into, what they should opt in for. That will give them more information. Basically, how can you direct people who just land on your site for the first time? How can you direct them to the content that's like most relevant for them? That's like, oh yeah, I should opt in for the content upgrade on this blog post. That's exactly what I've been looking for, rather than just overwhelming them with 100 things.
Yeah. Well, and that is my biggest pet peeve if I'm on someone else's site. If I go and it says like, it's usually the work with me tab. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to click on this and see. And then it's always super vague. It's like, well, contact me at, you know, their email address and we'll talk about da 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 da. And I'm like, I'm not that kind of a person. I'm an efficient person. And I want to know, what courses do you offer? What can you give me for an opt-in? Or how much is it going to cost me to work with you? So that's what I really love about what you guys did.
One of the things that's weird that I notice now, I'm like hyper aware of it, is how hard people make it to see what they sell. Like I will go to 100 websites in a day and not have any fucking clue what you sell. Like I mean, even I just go to websites and I'm like, I know this person has a program. I've heard about it. There's no link to it. There's no mention of it. And we see this all the time where I'm just like, why are you making it so hard for me to find where you sell things, how much it is, where I can buy it? I mean, it's like people overcomplicate it, or they just don't, they just don't really think about how it's being presented, but it's so important. And I just want to make that, for my own frustration of being like, literally going to a website. I hear someone do Periscope. I hear that they have a program. I go to their website and I cannot find the link to join. And I'm just like, I give up. And so it's really just solved that.
Well, and that's what I loved about it, because I was just, when I got Website in a Box, I was just starting to think about, okay, what are going to be my different pillars of what I say that I do? Because I was reframing my mission statement, reframing a lot of my business. And it really helped me go, oh, like I'm telling people all the time in my group and stuff how to brand themselves or how to choose their colors or whatever, but I didn't think of actually having a branding course. It really helped me go, okay, A, B, and C are what I offer. And that became the system, not only for my website, but for my business, for my email funnels, for my, the word just escaped my brain, my e-courses. So since you implemented this, and people are so blessed to have this early when they're first starting out, but for you, when you retooled and everything, what are some of the results that you saw from your clients?
When we redesigned the website?
Yeah.
For us, I mean, it meant that our opt-ins increased, but more so than our opt-ins increasing, our daily sales really increased, because what we realized, and we do have evergreen products that are available every day. We have funnels set up so that they do sell every day. You make 5 sales of your first 1K and 3 sales of fuck yeah funnels and whatever. But one of the questions we kept getting was, oh, like I'm looking at your first 1K, but I also see you have Webinar Rockstar, but in the previous design, there was no way to know what order to do things in. Like there was just like a link to like 3 different sales pages for my 3 different courses, but it wasn't like, oh, this one you should do now, this one's good for beginners, this one's whatever. So we'd have people emailing us their like life story about like, this is where I'm at with my business. Here, let me tell you everything about my experience and where I'm at. Which course of yours should I take? Because they'd be excited about something, but they were just like, I don't know what to buy. And for every person that emails you, 5 paragraphs trying to figure out what they should buy and get a suggestion, there's like 100 other people that didn't take the time and just said like, well, I honestly don't know which course is for me at this time, so I'm just not going to buy it.
Right.
So the biggest change, besides like opt-ins going up, is mostly when people can click on our courses navigation tab and then go to that page, and it explains step by step which course is for what stage in your business. So it's like, first, your first 1K. You could even put a free course at the very top of that page to make it like, here's step 1, get into the free course, like see if it's a good fit or whatever. And then, step 1 is your first 1K. Step 2, only once you've completed this, please move on to step 2. Like, do not buy this if you don't have a product yet. What will you sell, right? Like, don't, and then it's like, fuck yeah funnels, don't buy this if you don't have already something set up, because it can't help you if you don't have a course to sell. So we clarified that, and then almost overnight, our like daily sales were doubling because people were no longer being like, I have no idea what to buy.
Yeah.
That was the biggest change we saw.
Totally. Eliminating the problem that we were just complaining about, which is going to people's sites and having no idea how to work with them. So I love that. That's so awesome.
Totally.
Amazing. Okay. So talk to me about what's going on now in your biz. I know you've been traveling, you've been going to different conferences, you started a podcast and your Facebook group. So tell me what you're focusing on for like the next 3 or 4 months of your business.
Oh, that's a good question. We are always changing. We're lucky because, well, we're not lucky. We work our asses off, but we are fortunate that we have like the revenue to always be experimenting. And it's one of the things that like, we don't always have to be kind of like, oh, what are we going to promote this month? You know what I mean? Because we have steady revenue. So that means that we can say like, let's launch a podcast and see if it works. Like, let's start a Facebook group and see if it works. So one of the things that we kind of, in the last couple months, probably since January, I started feeling like we were just like doing the same thing over and over again. Like we were launching again, and then we were doing a weekly webinar, and it was just like boring me to death. I was like, what is this going to be the rest of my life? Like, I'm just going to fucking do a webinar and then launch, do webinar and launch. Like, this is, I can't, we got to do something different. Yeah. So I did travel for a couple of weeks. I mean, I was kind of traveling for like a month and a half. And then when we came back, I was like, let's do everything different and new. So we launched a podcast, the Femtrepreneur Show. We launched a Facebook group. I didn't even have a Facebook profile. So I literally, like, my assistant made me a Facebook account and then set up a group. So this is very new to me. But it's really exciting. It became more and more difficult to have a conversation with my audience and to really engage. It felt like as my email list gets bigger and bigger, it's just a one-sided, like, me talking to them, but not getting that response. And Periscope used to be a way that I would interact with people and be able to answer their questions more easily. But Periscope isn't really popular anymore. So I was like, well, Facebook Live is the new thing. So I guess I need a group so that I can interact with people with the live streaming. So we started the group. It's just called #Femtrepreneur on Facebook, and it's free, and there's no like email. You know, a lot of people are like, why aren't you making people sign up with their emails? And that's not really the point. The point is, like, I don't really have to bother you through email. Like, we can talk in the group. Yeah. It's kind of different than what other people are doing. And got a shout out to Caitlin Batcher, who like helped me wrap my head around like how to set up a Facebook group.
That was a great episode, by the way.
She's a real expert.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I know. It was she was literally convincing me in real time why we should set up a Facebook group. So we did that. One of the biggest things that's coming for us is using Facebook ads for the first time. So we've built this like multi-million-dollar business without spending even a penny on ads. Like, we have never, ever spent money on advertising. We've never used Facebook ads. We've never done any of that. And so we are, for the first time, literally next month, like gonna be using Facebook ads. So like, I don't know what it will do for our business. It could be awesome. It could be like, kind of, it could just give us a little bit improvement. Like, I don't know what to expect. But to me, that's like a huge step, because if it works, then we can kind of scale again.
So without using Facebook ads, how have you been promoting for the past couple years?
Mostly through webinars, and specifically through joint venture webinars. So a lot of people go the route where they're like, well, I'll spend money on ads and I'll just get people to my webinar and I'm doing it solo. But what I really wanted to do was do webinars with other people and build connections and build relationships. From the beginning, I knew that I didn't want to just like, the way that I wanted to be introduced to you was not just like me showing up in your feed with no context and not by choice. Like, you're not inviting me there. I wanted someone that you already know and trust and love to introduce me to you as their friend. Like, that to me is the way that I want you to find out about me, is because I'm doing a webinar with so-and-so and they're saying, look, I really love Mariah. She really helped me with this thing. And now she's coming to teach you about it too. You should listen to her. I want that to be how you meet me, not just like this like random thing with no context. So like trying to get your attention, you know what I mean? So I was just doing like tons and tons of webinars with other people, getting introduced to their audiences, doing promotions to their audience. That's kind of how I knew I wanted to build my business relationship-based, not paid ad-based.
Well, that's going to be really interesting to see that transition. And, because you're still kind of doing both, but to see what that result is going to be with Facebook is going to be exciting.
I think it's going to be exciting. I think doing it that way, like building up your business with joint venture webinars or just like partnerships and collaborations and stuff, is a great way to start. Over time, as our business gets bigger and bigger, it gets harder and harder. It's hard to pull off a one-time collaboration. It's not repeatable. it's awesome. Like, it's such a good way to do things. But the more we did it, the more it was like, wow, I'm literally like creating a new webinar from scratch with this other person every single week. Like, I wish there was an easier way to like try to reuse some of this content or something. So
yeah, that's a lot of work. Interesting. Well, yeah, I'm busting into that world myself. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
You're going to love it. It's so fun.
I'm excited. And I'm actually, I don't know if you use Webinar Jam, but I'm going to be recording them and then recycling them in EverWebinar. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes.
Perfect.
Woohoo. Okay. So as we kind of wrap up, I would love to hear the number one piece of encouragement that you'd like to give a ladypreneur that's listening right now who's feeling invisible.
I would just say don't ever try to like don't ever wish you had someone else's business, because if you sit there wishing you were so-and-so, or wishing you had so-and-so's business, or wishing you had their visibility, or wishing that you had like a cool sales page and like this thing, that is so dangerous, and it's actually not what makes you successful. And I see so many people think that that's the path to getting noticed. But if you're feeling invisible, the best thing you can do is show up on the scene and kind of talk about why the way everyone is doing things right now sucks, and like what you would do differently, and like why you think that, and that you have a fresh perspective that's like, wow, everyone around here, like when I started Femtrepreneur, I was like, all of these lady entrepreneurs are like the same person. It's just this like clone, and everyone is like pretty and like well done up and like wearing a dress and like and I'm just like, geez, like that is not me at all. Like I'm just like a dirty punk. Like I just like literally like lived in a van. Like when I started this business, I was living in my car, and like I started out in like a touring punk band. Like I was just like, there's another perspective that isn't just for the girl that feels like she has to like wear high heels and look pretty. That's not what being a female entrepreneur is, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you are in an industry where you're feeling visible, just look around and be like, don't say, oh, that girl is successful, how can I do what she's doing? Say, how can I do the opposite of that? And that's how you get noticed. Like the more that you can disagree with everything else that's happening in your industry, the more you're going to stand out. You have to have an opinion. Like form a fucking opinion if you feel invisible, because that is how you're going to stand out.
You know, I've asked this question to a lot of people, and that is probably the most clear, actionable, stop doing what you're doing and do it this way that's more authentic to you answer I've ever received. So thank you for that. That is fantastic and so actionable. I love it. So I want everyone here to stalk you. So tell us where we can find you, and then tell us about your freebie, which I'll link below.
Awesome. So you guys can find me and everything that we do at Femtrepreneur at femtrepreneur.co. So femtrepreneur.co is where you can find a link to our podcast, The Femtrepreneur Show. You can find a link to our programs that we talked about. The freebie, there's also tons of freebies on there about everything related to like webinars, list building, courses, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of goodness. But the one freebie that I definitely want you guys to check out, especially if you're just starting out, is the Course Creator Starter Kit, which is this little downloadable kit that helps you come up with your course idea, helps you kind of list out the content that you're going to make for your launch, gives you a list of all the tools that you can use that are cheap and easy to use. Really just kind of a beginner starter kit for anyone who is thinking about creating an online course. And you can get that at launchyoursignaturecourse.com. So launchyoursignaturecourse.com is where you can find that freebie, or you can just go to femtrepreneur.co and you'll find links to all this stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for offering that to our audience. And this has been such a pleasure. I have loved it. So thank you so much for taking your time today, coming on the show, chatting with us ladypreneurs over here, and helping us up our visibility.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really, really appreciate you having me.
Woohoo. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening in today to the Visibility Vixen podcast. Subscribe now and share with a fellow Vixen who wants to start building their visibility. For more fire in your life and brand, visit visibilityvixen.com.